Welcome to Pine Needles Quilt and Sew in Rochester, Minnesota. I am Joy Inglet and I am your host during this virtual quilt market time with the Minnesota Quilt Show. Thanks for joining me today virtually, and I want to share some tips and tricks with you during this time on how to personalize your quilt so it identifies it as a unique piece of work to you and to your art. It is important that as we create quilts and we give these away, that you sign your work at least with your name and a year. It can be as easy as signing with a marker on the back, but also we have tools within our sewing machines and our embroidery machines to make customization super easy. I'm going to show you a few of those things during our time together, and I'm also going to highlight a little bit on the edge-to-edge quilting technique that we have. Now, the first part of this demonstration, we cover this in our mastery class, and I just want to make you aware that during this virtual quilt show, we are the BERNINA booth. Thank you, BERNINA of America, for helping sponsor this virtual time together. And we have many wonderful machines showcased at the shop, and they are listed in our shopping page on pnqs.net. And an event wouldn't be an event without extra gifts with purchases. With many of our machine purchases, we have included an accessory bag with the machine, and of course we have included one of my favorite volumes, the Big Book of Feet. Let me unzip this amazing bag. The Big Book of Feet is a wonderful reference book, and tomorrow on Saturday I'll be offering some sessions on fun feet and also Joy's top 10 favorite feet. So I hope you join me tomorrow virtually to tune into those things. But also, in addition to the bag and the book, we are in many cases including the 97D quarter-inch foot and also the very popular walking foot. So check out the machine bundles that we have to see which gift comes with the machine. And then, because we are all created different, we have created 5 different bundles that you can choose from to go with those purchases as well. And to sweeten that up, it is a summer sale from BERNINA, and we have some savings. We have some dollars off our 5 series, save $500. On our 7 series, save $700, and on our 8 series, save $800. And as of today, the BERNINA financing summer sale offer has begun. We have 60 months 0% financing available to you to help make that dream machine a possibility. And we also have 48-month 0% interest available for other purchases, BERNINA purchases as well. Of course, cash, check, and credit card are always welcome in our store. And thank you to my wonderful coworkers who are back at the shop, manning the phones, the emails, and talking to those of you who have time to stop in and check out these amazing machines. So without further ado, on any one of these BERNINAs, it's easy to create a quilt label. All the way down to the, well, actually you can create quilt labels all the way down to the entry-level 325 BERNINA. But on the touch screen, starting at the model 475 Quilters Edition, we have this amazing function on our machine called Combi Stitch. This gives us the ability to combine different decorative stitches or even lettering to create lines of text or unique stitches. This gives us total stitch control. We can create what we'd like to. We can mirror image, we can go left or right, we can go up or down, we can elongate. There's so many possibilities. It's super easy. Let me show you one of the things I like to do just as an easy peasy quilt label, and we're done. So in front of me I have the 880 machine, and this is my normal sewing screen, and at the bottom here we have this little plus symbol. This takes us into our combi mode, and this is where I can combine different stitches. It's easy to go to an alphabet folder and to pick out a lettering. I'm going to pick out a simple font, And I'm going to go ahead and put my name in. Again, I'm Joy. And I like to include my the year that I have created. There's a space. And I think I might also like to include another decorative stitch here. Not that one. There's so many possibilities here. And I'm thinking I'm going to put my camper, because this is a camper quilt. So up here at the top we have a little preview. I've got a camper, I've got my year. If I were to make a mistake, it's easy to make changes. Whatever's highlighted is what I can edit. I can go ahead and close my window. And it's super easy to go ahead and group all those things together and stitch them out. Now, on the machine in this combi mode, you can stitch it out continuously, so you get a bunch of these little tags. You could stitch it out on twill tape, for example. If you got a little wider twill tape, simply stick it down to some sticky stabilizer to keep it tracking nice, or maybe spray baste it to another lighter weight stabilizer like Ultra Clean and Tear, and you can easily stitch out your name. You could even leave some space and do it again and again and make a series of tags. Now, not only is that very helpful to put on the back of your quilt to identify your quilt, you can also put this in the edge of your binding. Sometimes I'm in a bit of a hurry and I don't want to bother with a whole label on the back. I just need to get it done because I have to give it as a gift. What I will do is I'll actually use the Serpentine Stitch. Let me show you what that looks like. On our quilters menus, it's at the end here, and there are some different choices. But a Serpentine Stitch is just a hump. So I will go ahead on my binding and stitch out this Serpentine Stitch, and I'll end my pattern, and then I will go ahead and I will stitch in my name, and I will indicate that I only want one pattern of my name, and then I will return to the Serpentine Stitch. That way it's edged right into my binding. Maybe that isn't kosher in the quilting world, but the quilt police aren't going to be after me, and I feel it really is more important that my quilt has my name on it with a year, when it's given, or when we use it in our own house. That way we can know when we have created it. So that is one way that I might create a quilt label or identify my quilt. Now just think outside the box. Have you ever had to send a kid off to confirmation camp or school camp? This past year no one went anywhere, but when you do that, you do need to label everything. Or maybe you have an elderly person or a person who's in a nursing care facility where they need to have their things labeled. Again, using combi mode with the alphabets that are built into your Bernina make it super easy to label all of their belongings. You don't need to go out and buy that IdentaPen Sharpie marker. You can stitch it right into their clothing, even into their towels, into their pillowcases, everything. Then it is clearly identified as theirs. So that is one way you can personalize your quilting object with your name. Now another way is if you have an embroidery module, you can create a quilt label. Let me give you a quick little peek at that. Now with a quilt label, we would go into our embroidery side and we would pick an alphabet, and depending on the model machine you have, you get different alphabets. And I'm going to just choose a simple one here. And my tag is going to say, "With love, Mom." And we have access to both big and little letters. And let's see, I think I need to put love on here too in the same line. So that will bring it in as a single layer of text, and I can move it up on my screen, and I can add a second layer of text, and I want to put the year in, and I think I'll pick a year that isn't quite so bold. And we're going to go back to the original one. And let me just show you briefly what this looks like so far. So it's a little squishy here, so I can go ahead and I can move my name, or I can have better control using my knobs. And I have total stitch control in this way. And the width, I'm going to move up just a little bit. But with this, with love, I can also, on certain models, I have the ability to do word art. And word art allows me to spread letters apart, and I can put them closer together, but I can also curve them. Now let's see what this is looking like. Oh, that's pretty good, but I think maybe I might need to rotate that with love a little bit. So I will highlight that. I'm going to give it a little tweak. That's looking pretty good. I can then go ahead and center it in my hoop, and I'm ready to stitch that out. And I did. Now this is a little bit bigger label, but you know, that's okay. Some people go ahead and they create the label ahead of the quilt and they stitch it right into the backing and quilt over the top. That way it's forever more incorporated into the quilt. You could also put it down in the quarter as part of the binding. The choice is really yours. Now in this process, I frequently will create the embroidery image, and I'll use a product on the back of this called Fusible Woven. And as a time saver, if I'm going to quilt over the top of this to help anchor it in place, I will take a second layer of that Fusible Woven, which is an iron-on product, and I will trim my design down, and I'll put that product on that Fusible Woven or Shape Flex and stitch it like a pocket. And I'll slit the Shape Flex and turn it around so that the iron-on side now is on the back. So here we have the embroidery side. On the back side, what would be exposed, but all these edges would be finished, would be that Fusible Woven. That allows me to iron it onto the back of my quilt, and when it goes on the quilt frame, the quilting will stitch over the top of it and finish securing that quilt label in place. You could also still add this at the end, but again, having that fusing layer helps you position it on the quilt so it doesn't shift. You don't need to pin. You can just do your hand stitching or your top stitching with your machine, whatever your preference is. That is a really nice way to go with that. Now, another possibility is that, and if you want to get fancier, now on this quilt label I could have added little decorative elements too, but with software, and we have several options at Pine Needles for software. We have a product called Toolbox, which will work both on a Macintosh and on a Windows computer. You can create beautiful little quilt labels as easy as typing in on your computer using your keyboard the font. You can do the shaping, you can add in motifs. With BERNINA software, which is like the great big color box of fun, you can create, again, quilt labels very easily. Creating something that is arched like this is super easy. You type in your text, you put them in the lines you want, and there are functions in the software that allow you to curve your text on a predetermined path that you have chosen for yourself. The thing about software is that you are able to stitch much smaller stitching. So maybe you want to put a little poem on the back of your quilt, or you want to personalize a little gift. You have the ability to pick much smaller fonts using either one of those software options. We do offer classes for the BERNINA software, and it is really an easy product to use, and you have so many possibilities of taking an idea and then stitching it out on your fabric. So that is some quilt label thoughts for you to personalize. Of course, the easiest way is to just take a permanent marker and write on the back of your quilt, but stitching it out on your amazing BERNINA machine is an even more fun way to go. And really, it gives you excuses to buy more thread, because you can say to your family, well, look what I created. You have options. I'm going to move that off to the side. Now, as far as stitching in the hoop, this is the largest hoop, the oval hoop that comes with either size embroidery module that we have for our machines. The 5 series includes this hoop and a more square-shaped hoop, and the 7 and 8 series embroidery machines include this hoop, that square hoop, and another tiny little hoop. But we can go up in size. On our 5 series, we can work in a hoop as big as this. These hoops have a quick release mechanism, so it's easy to put the hoop together and to take it apart. It has rounded construction to give really great support to our project that we're working on. And when we're talking about quilting in the hoop, we want the ability to hoop our fabric easily, especially when we have all those layers, and we want it to be easy to close the hoop, and we want to make sure that everything stays secure in our hoop as we're stitching out. The BERNINA hoops will do that for you. So the Midi Hoop is the largest hoop that the 5 series will accommodate, but you can also use this on the 7 and 8 series machines. It is one of our most popular hoop sizes because of this ratchet mechanism and because it's just a little bit bigger than that one. We also have, let me bring my templates over, the Maxi Hoop. Now the Maxi Hoop is a good illustration of how much space is available in a 7 series machine. When we go up to that bigger embroidery machine, we have more room to create, and since I'm going to be talking about creating a long arm look on our embroidery machines, having a big hoop gives you more space to stitch without having to re-hoop. So this is the Maxi Hoop. It will also go on the 8 series machine, but it is the largest hoop to go on the 7 series. I say that with one tiny caveat because you can put the jumbo hoop on the 7 series, but when you do that, you actually only still can stitch in this amount of space because that's all the space that is between the needle and the edge of the machine. And when I say all the space, you have 10 inches of space. That's really quite a lot. And you have all of this height. So lastly, we have the jumbo hoop, the big one. And this gives you the most space to quilt in the hoop in, or to create or embroider. And you have lots of options. Here is a little quilt pattern that is built into the machine, the BERNINA machine. It's on my 880, and it actually is only about a 4-inch design, but I increased its size all the way up to here, and let's see, I increased it so it is almost 9 inches big. So it's perfect to go inside of some of those blocks that have a big open area, and then they have all the little star-shaped points around. But I did a little test sample on the Hydro Stick stabilizer. It is a stabilizer that if you wet it, it will stick to the back of your fabric. But what we love about it is that it's kind of fabric-like. It doesn't distort as you're working with it, and it makes a really great placement template for your work. And while we're on that method here, I want to highlight the test sew outs that I did for some edge-to-edge designs that we have by Emily Scott. How the designs that she has set up, she has an A and B template, and that allows us to easily begin and end a design and continue it across a quilt and to replicate it from top to bottom. And you know, I stitched it out in these fun little daisies, and it was very easy to lay this on top of my quilt and to find my next placement. And because the 880 has pinpoint placement, that is the feature that allows you to hoop it even just a little bit crooked, but still stitch it out straight. That made the final positioning absolutely precise. Again, I talked about those bundles that you can purchase to, or not the purchase, but to choose with the purchase of a machine. And one of the bundles we have, excuse me, is the Edge to Edge bundle. And in that bundle, we have the book, Edge to Edge Quilting. It is a comprehensive guide for how to follow that technique. But inside the book, there are also 10 quilting designs that can be used in small, medium, and large. In addition to the book that tells you how, we also have 2 extra bonus packs, and the assortment may vary. But what is great about these is that there's a variety of themes in each one of these collections. Anything from pumpkins and spiderwebs to dogwoods and baseball. There is a variety of options within these kits. Now maybe you're a long armor. These can also be converted to other formats, and they can be used on other brands of machines. In addition, we include a roll of Hydro Stick because that is our favorite product to use to create our placement templates. And we have included USB sticks, so you can add those designs on your USB stick so you can easily take them to your machine. And we've included some top stitch needles because that is our preferred needle when quilting in the hoop. And lastly, sometimes when we are hooping things, if we don't happen to own one of those nice hooper mechanisms or one of those nice non-slip mats, having some double stick bias tape, it's not bias tape, it's double-sided basting tape by Nancy Zeman is the cat's pajamas. It goes on the back of your hoop, and I have a little bit of a remnant here, but when you separate your inner hoop from your outer hoop, having that basting tape here, when you place your hoop on top of your quilt, it helps keep it in place so it's easier to lift up and transfer into our hoop section and then take it to our machine. And that allows us to have easier placement as we go. Works better on a flat surface, I'm just saying. Anyway, one of the things to think about with Edge to Edge, you of course can do small projects like table runners and things, but you can do bigger projects. And I have quilted as big as a full-size quilt on my 880. I usually then put my 880 and embroidery module on a large surface to support the weight of the quilt as it's working along. But you know, baby-sized quilts are easy peasy. Those lap quilts that we feature each week, they're easy to quilt, and you can then fit the finishing of your quilt in your time frame and in your sewing studio. It is a nice option to have in your toolbox to complete your projects and to make it your own. In addition to the Amelie Scott designs, not pictured here, but we do carry Amanda Murphy's quilting designs, and they are digitized for not only long arms but also for domestic embroidery machines. And these are really a delightful addition to your sewing studio, again increasing your possibilities. She usually offers some sort of edge-to-edge pattern as well as a corner design, maybe a border design, and a quilt square medallion or featured design of some sort. So these are really wonderful things to have in your sewing caddy of life. So again, having a machine that has an embroidery module gives you lots of possibilities for creating quilt labels and for creating in the hoop. Having the knowledge of your combi stitch on your sewing side gives you lots of options for creating unique labels, but also patterns on other projects. So thank you for joining me today on the virtual booth. If you have questions, go ahead and post them in the comments. I will be following along there. Be sure to like, comment, and share. And I hope to see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock when we kick off the final day of the Minnesota Quilt Show, and I will provide more demonstrations and information for you. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. Have a great day.